Up with us from South Florida this morning, Riddick is in Miami for Cam Ward's Pro Day. We'll talk about him as we go. But, Lewis, I want to get some takes on some things that we've seen happen. Let's play a game of What Say Lou. Let's start with Jameis Winston and the Giants' 2-year deal. What say Lou?
Look, this is an insurance signing, that's all. I think we all know what Jameis Winston brings to the table at this point in time in his career. And look, he really is a competent backup, a guy who could win you 4 or 5 games if possible, if you need him to play for that amount of time. And by all accounts, is someone who's good in the locker room for whoever the primary starter would be. But let's not kid ourselves in thinking that Jameis is going to have some kind of, late career revival and become something that he's not. And that's not trying to be disrespectful. That's just being honest. I don't think this kind of affects in any way what they do in the draft, if they do, in fact, consider drafting a quarterback because they like someone that they can get at the position that they're at, or if they're still contemplating moving up. I don't think he precludes them or, takes them out of doing anything like that.
How about the Russell Wilson of it all? That the Giants had been a place for him, maybe still a place for him. What say Lou about Russell Wilson?
Yeah, this situation is getting a little weird with Russ. It's kind of confusing as to why he is not signed right now. Like, for instance, what's the holdup in Cleveland? Is it him? Is it them? Are they trying to wait and see what they want to do? With the Giants, I think it's kind of one of those situations where it would be, why would you sign Russell and Jameis Winston? Why would you have them both there on that football team? That one doesn't make any sense to me. And look, Pittsburgh has already made it known that they don't really want him back, and he would really be a consolation prize at this point. That would really be a weird pairing, considering that they already know what they have in him. If they were that convinced, they would have signed him already. I think Russ is in an interesting position right now.
And because the guy that they seem to want is Aaron Rodgers, who spent the day at the facility there the other day. So what say Lou about Rodgers and the Steelers now?
Yeah, Greeny, I've said all along that I think these two entities, so to speak, need one another. Pittsburgh needs him because they need to level up the quarterback position. Aaron needs Pittsburgh because of the fact that the respect that he has for Mike Tomlin, I think, would cause him or allow him to just focus in on playing quarterback. You don't have to play general manager. You don't have to play team builder. You just need to play the position at a real high level, which is exactly what they need. And quite honestly, I think he's still capable of doing, provided they're able to support him in the appropriate way in terms of protection and weapons, which you would think, at least from the weapon standpoint, they've got what they need there.
Lewis, your favorite person, Jeff Darlington, is here today. And Jeff has been making the point this morning that for all of us who are saying, and I'm one of them, saying, well, Aaron Rodgers is either going to be the Steelers or he's going to retire. You're telling me I'm going way too far ahead.
I'm just saying that I've spoken to some decision makers of other teams who are very clear on this. They do not believe that Aaron Rodgers has made up his mind in this regard. And they don't think that anybody knows even which direction he is headed. Certainly, we can take 6 hours that he spent in the building to suggest that he is very serious about the Pittsburgh Steelers. That being said, what kind of love is it if it is not love that ends in a signing?
Right. Right. But to be clear, you're telling me there could still be other teams involved.
Yes, 100%. I would say this. I think there are other teams involved. I think it is far more of a reach to suggest that Aaron Rodgers is simply contemplating whether to sign with the Steelers or retire from the game of football than it is to suggest that there are other teams that are on his radar.
I agree. You go through that mental checklist. If a guy's in the building for 6 hours and doesn't sign, like, is he waiting on his wife, kids, school system? What else could it be? And if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I have a massive sense of urgency. Who is playing quarterback? To use Lou's term, the leveling up. They have outstanding weapons, but they are picking 21st screen. Yeah. They need a quarterback that's not Mason Rudolph.
I can guarantee you, by the way, that Aaron Rodgers is not choosing his next team. This is good sources on the school system.
That's right. He doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have kids, and I'm dying to hear his thoughts on the school system, but that's a whole separate... Okay, what? Don't take me out of where I'm going. I'm holding you in contempt. Lewis, should the Steelers... Let's live in a world where the Steelers don't wind up with Aaron Rodgers. Now what? They've signed Mason Rudolph. They pick, I believe, 21st in the draft. Yeah. Now what?
Yep. Look, I think regardless whether they sign Aaron or not, they still have to be the discussion has to still be on the table as far as them picking a quarterback in the first round. This still has to be there. And even if it would be a consideration of theirs to maybe move back in the first round, considering all the teams that draft after them don't necessarily need a quarterback in the first round, but could they move down, pick up some picks, and still get a guy who they could develop as the long-term answer at the position? And you know where I'm going. I don't need to really say. You already know his name. We all know his name. Look, Tyler Shuck has to be someone that's on their radar. He's someone who was on their initial top 30 visit list and someone who I know that they are kicking the tires on, as they should, because this young man has got unique qualities, I think, that would fit what Arthur is trying to do offensively there in Pittsburgh to a T. So, again, getting back to the Aaron Rodgers situation, what he does really has no bearing, I believe, on what they do at the quarterback position. If they really like a guy, then they feel as though he could be a 10, 15-year answer for them. So, yeah, I agree with Mike. Something's going on with the guy. Look, if he spends 6 hours in the building, but he still hasn't committed, like, what is he waiting for? I don't know. Jeff has some secret teams, some mystery teams. Go ahead and reveal them. Jeff, tell us who they are, because I don't really know who they are or what could be holding it up right now.
That's called you out. What do we think here? I mean, if you're the Steelers and this is happening, like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, too many variables are at play. Again, we talked about it before.
You want to give him a deadline. Absolutely.
You have to give him a deadline, Green, because you need another quarterback. And I like
the problem is you don't have another quarterback. If
Russell Wilson.
Going back to Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and I like Lou's idea about maybe drafting somebody in the 20s. You know, they took Kenny Pickett in the same spot a couple years ago, but you have to give him a deadline, Greeny. You can't go into the draft with Mason Rudolph and hope. That is not going to get you to where you want to go in the AFC North.
This is a man who went into a darkness retreat to try to make a decision, and you're going to give him a deadline?
That's exactly right. He may literally not see the light of day before the deadline that you have imposed upon him. I understand. He doesn't strike me as one who would react well to that.
But, again, Cam Hayward's giving us the answers to the test. They have Aaron Rodgers fatigue in Pittsburgh, and he's not even a Steeler yet.
Yeah, well, that's probably true. Everyone stay where you are. We're going to hear about Cam Ward's Pro Day as we continue as well. But I want to run the floor from the NCAA women's tournament action over the weekend. 3-seed Notre Dame beat Michigan 76-55. So they advanced to the Sweet 16 for the fourth straight year, led by first-team All-American Hannah Hidalgo. She dropped 21 for the Irish. A 2-seed TCU knocked off the 7-seed Louisville 85-70. Haley Van Lith got revenge on her former team. She scored 16 points, had 10 assists. Horned Frogs advanced to their first Sweet 16 ever. They will face Notre Dame. And the defending champion South Carolina got a scare, down one at the half. But they turned it around and beat Indiana 64-53. 11th straight Sweet 16 for the Gamecocks, who are the tournament favorites to win it all. And our NCAA Women's Championship second-round action continues on ESPN at noon, featuring games with NC State, Texas, Iowa, and LSU. All tournament games are also available on the ESPN app. As we continue, St. John's out. Did Rick Pitino make a huge mistake benching his best player? We're talking about legendary coaches. Danny Hurley had a lot to say yesterday. Not all of it was pretty. We'll hear from him and give our thoughts. Then we'll get to Pitino's mistake. Or was it one? Benching his best player. And what he said afterwards. Did any of it make sense? We'll dive into all of that, and we'll dive into this. Trivia for Seth. He goes right on Friday. Let's see if you get this one today. Which coach, Seth, has won the most NCAA tournament games as the lower seed? See if we can get it right when we come back. This is Get Up on ESPN.
Cái hôm em lại nhân nghĩa đó, bao nhiêu tiền? 2. Chị trả thế điểm. Cái đợt em đi cho to.